Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people get when they meet a man who genuinely doesn't need anything from them? Not their approval, not their validation, not even their company. He's not bitter or angry about it, he's just complete. There's something about this kind of self-contained masculinity that makes others squirm. They'll probe, trying to find his weakness, his need, his dependency. But don't you get lonely? What's your 5-year plan? When are you going to settle down? And when he simply shrugs and says, "I'm good as I am," something shifts in the room. Because he's just shattered one of society's most fundamental assumptions about what men are supposed to need to be whole. This isn't just social awkwardness we're witnessing. It's a philosophical crisis, because that man represents something that challenges the very foundation of how we organize society, the belief that human beings, especially men, are fundamentally incomplete. For centuries, we've been sold a story about masculine fulfillment. Get the career, find the woman, build the family, secure the legacy. It's a neat little package that keeps everyone in their place, playing their roles, following the script. But what happens when someone simply opts out, not out of failure or bitterness, but from a place of genuine contentment? The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about individuals who create their own values rather than inheriting them from society. He called this process becoming who you are, shedding the expectations others have placed on you to discover your authentic nature. Meanwhile, psychologist Carl Jung explored how true psychological maturity comes from integrating all aspects of yourself, including the parts society tells you to hide or suppress. These aren't abstract philosophical concepts. They're playing out right now in a generation of men who are questioning everything they were taught about success, completion, and what it means to live a meaningful life. Why does this matter today? Because we're living through the collapse of traditional structures that once dictated life paths. The social contracts our grandfathers lived by, work for one company, marry young, follow the rules, are dissolving. And in that dissolution, some men are discovering something revolutionary. They might actually be whole already. This realization doesn't just change individual lives. It threatens entire systems built on the assumption of male inadequacy and need. The manufacturing of incompleteness. Here's something that might shock you. Your sense of incompleteness isn't natural. It's carefully constructed. From childhood, men receive a consistent message. You're only half a person until you find the one. You need to find your better half. A real man provides for others. Nietzsche called this slave morality, the idea that you're inherently deficient and need external validation to become whole. It's brilliant social engineering, really. If you believe you're broken, you'll spend your entire life trying to fix yourself through others. But here's what's fascinating. Jung discovered that within every man's psyche exists what he called the anima, the inner feminine energy. Most men project this onto women, thinking she completes me. But when you develop this aspect of yourself, your emotional intelligence, intuition, nurturing capacity, something remarkable happens. You become psychologically complete on your own. The self-sufficient man has done this inner work. He's accessed his full emotional range, developed his intuitive side, learned to nurture himself. He doesn't need a woman to feel emotionally whole because he's integrated these qualities within himself. And that integration, it makes him immune to manipulation based on incompleteness. The economics of male insecurity. Let's talk money. There's a massive industry worth hundreds of billions globally that depends entirely on you feeling inadequate without a partner. The wedding industry alone generates over $300 billion annually, but it goes much deeper. Real estate markets target couples because they buy bigger homes. Insurance companies create family plans because married men purchase more coverage. Car companies market family vehicles. The entire consumer economy is structured around the assumption that you need to provide for someone else. But watch what happens when a man genuinely doesn't need to impress anyone. His spending patterns completely change. That expensive car? He realizes he was buying it to signal provider status. The oversized apartment? Performance, not preference. The constant dinner dates and expensive gifts? Attempts to prove his worth. Nietzsche wrote about the will to power, not power over others, but power over yourself. When you redirect that energy from external validation to internal development, you stop consuming out of insecurity and start living from authenticity. The self-sufficient man asks dangerous questions like, do I actually want this, or do I think I should want it? And when millions of men start asking that question, entire markets collapse. Embracing the shadow self. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. You have a dark side, and society has spent your entire life teaching you to hide it. Jung called this your shadow, all the parts of yourself you've been told are unacceptable. Your selfishness, your independence, your refusal to sacrifice everything for others. Most men spend their lives running from these aspects, getting into relationships partly to prove they're good guys who can put others first. But what if embracing these shadow qualities is actually the path to wholeness? The psychologically integrated man has faced his darkness honestly. He's acknowledged, yes, I can be selfish. Yes, I value my independence above approval. Yes, I'm not always willing to sacrifice my dreams for someone else's comfort. Instead of being ashamed of these qualities, he's integrated them. And here's what's wild. When you stop running from your shadow, you stop needing external validation. You're no longer performing goodness to prove you're worthy of love. This is what Nietzsche meant by amor fati, love of fate. Accept your complete nature, including the parts society calls selfish or dark, because only when you accept your whole self can you make authentic choices about relationships.
The threat to social control. A married man is predictable. He has responsibilities, mortgages, family obligations. He can't just quit his job and travel. He can't take major risks. He stays in line because he has others depending on him. But the man who doesn't need marriage, he's dangerous. Not violently, psychologically. He can pivot his entire life without asking permission. He can prioritize his growth over others' expectations. He represents what Jung called the integration of both order and chaos within one person. Nietzsche distinguished between the Apollonian, order, control, predictability, and the Dionysian, creativity, wildness, authentic expression. Marriage often transforms Dionysian men into purely Apollonian ones. Their creative chaos gets channeled into providing. Their independence becomes responsibility. The self-sufficient man retains both. He can be structured when beneficial and wild when necessary, responsible in business and rebellious in spirit. This flexibility makes him incredibly powerful. And power that can't be controlled threatens systems built on predictability. Creating your own values. Here's the ultimate question. Who decided that marriage was necessary for a complete life? Think about it. When you trace back these rules about masculine success, where do they actually come from? Your parents, society, religion, media? But what if these are just inherited opinions, not universal truths? Nietzsche wrote about the Übermensch, not a superior being, but someone who creates their own values instead of inheriting them from others. The self-sufficient man embodies this principle. He's not rejecting marriage because it's wrong, he's rejecting the idea that it's mandatory for his completion. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming who you truly are rather than who society says you should be. When you complete this process, you evaluate every major life choice based on your authentic desires, not social programming. Imagine if every man started asking, would I choose this relationship if I had to live it forever? That's Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence. Make choices as if you'll repeat them infinitely. How many relationships would survive that test? The self-sufficient man has already passed it. He's looked at his life honestly and decided, I'd rather be alone than settle for anything less than genuine connection. This isn't anti-relationship, it's pro-authenticity. When you create your own values around relationships, partnership, and success, you're not destroying society. You're demonstrating that alternative ways of living are possible. And that demonstration It's so powerful that it makes others question everything they thought they knew about what it means to be a complete human being. So here's what we've discovered. The man who doesn't need marriage isn't society's enemy. He's its mirror. He reflects back the uncomfortable truth that completion comes from within, not from others. That your worth isn't determined by your relationship status. That you can create your own definition of a meaningful life. This isn't about rejecting love or connection. It's about approaching them from wholeness rather than neediness. When you've done the inner work Jung described, integrating your shadow, developing your anima, becoming truly individuated, you transform relationships entirely. You stop seeking someone to complete you and start choosing someone to share your completeness with. The question isn't whether you should or shouldn't marry. It's whether you're making that choice from authentic desire or inherited programming. Are you living your values or society's script? Here's your challenge. Spend the next week asking yourself one simple question before every major decision. Is this what I actually want or what I think I should want? Write down your honest answers. You might be surprised by what you discover about your authentic desires versus your programmed responses. If this exploration of philosophical psychology resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps others find content that challenges conventional thinking. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you ever felt pressure to follow life scripts that didn't feel authentic? And subscribe for more deep dives into the philosophy and psychology that shapes how we live. Remember, the most revolutionary act might just be becoming genuinely comfortable with who you already are.